Welcome back to another episode. I am so excited to be chatting with you guys today. We have so much to discuss about one story in particular. But first, if you haven't subscribed, I am back on this channel. I am also back on Substack. So make sure that you are staying up on top of my YouTube channel and my Substack. It helps me out a lot. It's editing Eliana here. Today's episode was actually filmed a couple weeks ago, so some of the information is now outdated, specifically on the story about Eric Swalwell. He has now completely dropped out of the race for California governor, and at the time that I filmed this episode, the allegations had just come out. The reason I still want to put this episode out is because I have a future episode with one of the women who leaked the information out into the public. I thought I would still put out today's episode, even though the information is a little bit outdated, so that you have a primer for that episode that is going to be coming out very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. And now let's get into today's episode. Okay, Eric Swalwell. This is an exclusive from CNN, who has been running for California governor, has just been exposed for sleeping with staffers and allegedly graping one of them, if you know what I mean by grape. The exclusive was set both in the San Francisco Chronicle and CNN. This was literally breaking as of 20 hours ago, so there is still information that needs to come out. But the California governor's race has been extremely contentious and very, very chaotic. There's no clear front runner necessarily, although the polls are claiming, some polls are claiming that it could go to a Republican. I have serious doubts that that could happen, but on the Democratic side, there are so many candidates that are just quite honestly not great. Eric Swalwell on the Democrat side was polling more towards the top. However, now that this information has dropped, it is very possible that he could be pushed out of the governor's race altogether. In my opinion, I think that's a good thing. Eric Swalwell has never 100% fully set right with me. I had heard rumors that he was just not great with staffers, didn't know the full ins and outs. For the last couple of weeks, I had been in communication with some people who knew the information really, really well and confirmed for me that this is not a guy that we should be platforming, at least not on the Democratic side. But you guys know I am also pro-independent parties and third parties. So, you know, for me, it's neither here nor there, but the Democrats have, you know, the most power, the most sway, and the most electability. So if there is a progressive on the ticket, you know, we'll look into them. But I am very pro ranked choice voting. Unfortunately, we do not have that in California. So this race has always been very, very important, but also contentious and chaotic. So let's get into the CNN article. 4 women described sexual misconduct by Representative Eric Swalwell, including a former staffer who says he graped her. As we get into this article, there are going to be things that might be triggering for some of you, so just please take care as you are listening in. The article states, quote, "I was pushing him off me, saying no." This is a woman who told CNN of the incident, which she said happened in 2024 after she had stopped working for Swalwell's office. She says, quote, "He didn't stop." She said it was the second time Swalwell had non-consensual sexual contact with her while she was drunk. In 2019, when she was still working for him, she said she woke up naked with him in a hotel room after a night of heavy drinking. She said she had no memory of what happened, but could feel physically that she had sexual contact. 3 other women who spoke to CNN also allege various kinds of sexual misconduct by the Democratic congressman, including Swalwell sending them unsolicited explicit messages or nude photos. So this is kind of in line with the rumors that I had heard. Not the specific details, and definitely not the 2024 incident, but definitely around the lines of him just being an absolute fucking creep when it comes to his relationship with his staffers. Now, if this doesn't sound like super reminiscent of a 1990s case, we're going to get into that a little bit later, especially because Eric Swalwell did release a response on his Instagram. Very bad idea, sir, because it is not a good look for him. And we're going to get into that video as well. Okay, let's continue. One woman who connected online with Swalwell over her interest in Democratic politics says that she ended up extremely drunk inside his hotel room after a night out with the congressman with little memory of what occurred. Earlier in the night at a bar, he kissed her and touched her leg without consent, is what she's saying. Another woman who described receiving unsolicited nude messages from Swalwell was social media creator Ali Samarco. She said she initially reached out to the congressman on Twitter to discuss politics. I truly never thought he would respond. I had like 1,000 followers at the time, she said, and he actually responded. But Swalwell is denying every single woman's allegations. Now, listen here. Men in politics have always been quite a problem. We know that white men in politics disproportionately enter politics. There's a lot to do with class. There's a lot to do with education and elitism in politics. But when it comes to things like this, there is a psychology when you are a congressman, a senator, any sort of man who holds power within our government, where the ego just gets inflated. There is something about these particular men where their egos are just over the top, overblown, and they have a power complex. And so a lot of the staffers end up getting the brunt of these men in power who just don't know how to treat people with humanity, it seems sometimes. It's just very clear that like we cannot trust all of these men. Now, the reason that I'm bringing this up is because this is a man who was a prosecutor and has claimed that he would never do anything like this because he was a prosecutor and he understands, and he has a daughter, and he understands how, you know, women being sexually assaulted, women experiencing these types of things, how that negatively affects them. And I feel like he's really weaponizing his experience and his history. And he also mentions that, you know, he's been, you know, on the Hill for 20 years, yada, yada, yada. These men cannot be trusted. And to to try to explain away these allegations, as we are going to see as potentially a Republican smear campaign, is just wild, absolutely wild to me. Okay, so here's the last thing. An attorney for Swalwell sent two of the women that CNN spoke to with a cease and desist letter on Thursday, a day after CNN first reached out to his campaign to request for comment. According to copies of the letters that they provided to CNN, and the letters called the women's accounts false, ordered them to retract their statements, and warned of potential legal action if they continue speaking out. Does that sound like a man who is completely innocent and confident that he can prove his innocence? Baby girl. That is absolutely wild to me. So, as I mentioned, he did put out an Instagram response. We're going to take a look at that Instagram response and respond to his response.
These allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They are absolutely false. They did not happen. They have never happened, and I will fight them with everything that I have. They also come on the eve of an election where I have been the frontrunner candidate for governor in California.
So we're just going to pause it right there. That is egregious in and of itself. That this is coincidentally coming at a time where I am running for governor and I'm polling towards the top. Sir, have several seats. This had been rumored for years, and it was circulating for weeks behind the scenes, especially between, political commentators who had been discussing how, the governor's race was going, that immediately this was not a man who should be trusted. This is a man who sleeps with staffers. So to come out and claim that this is completely false without providing any sort of context, although we're going to get to a very interesting point that I think we should really deep dive into, is absolutely egregious. But let's continue.
I do not suggest to you in any way that I'm perfect or that I'm a saint. I have certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past, but those mistakes are between me and my wife. And to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position.
So that right there is the very specific part that I think that we should deep dive into. This man just said, yeah, I'm not perfect. I know that I've made mistakes, but that's between me and my wife. Sir, did you just admit to cheating? And are you now insinuating that these allegations are false because they, in your eyes, were consensual and that you did sleep with staffers? And that somehow making it forcing us to believe that it was consensual makes it okay or any better? Because that is the typical talking point for a misogynist predator, allegedly, that they are, not creeps, that these people were completely okay with what was happening, the power imbalance that was happening. Sir, for the love of God, take several seats and drop out of this campaign immediately. So again, he's claiming that, he's made mistakes, that it's between him and his wife, that he's apologized to his wife and he's sorry. I don't know if we got to this part yet, but he's sorry for what he's put her through. So he basically just admitted to cheating. Women who remain with their husbands after they have just admitted to wrongdoing, particularly with other women, y'all really need to figure out why you remain with these types of men. Hillary Clinton, I'm looking at you. Okay, let's continue.
I also apologize to you if in any way you have doubted your support for me. But I think you know who I am. For over 20 years, I have served the public. As a city councilman, as a member of Congress, and as a prosecutor who went to court on behalf of victims, particularly on behalf of sexual assault victims. That's who I am and have always been. This weekend, I'm going to spend time with my family and friends. And I appreciate those who have reached out to me to show support. And I look forward to updating you very soon.
Okay, yeah, go spend time with your family and your friends who are just going to tell you that you're a great person and there's nothing to worry about. His time is done. The man is fully cooked. His campaign is over. He has lost several endorsements, literally overnight. People are completely backing out. The Democratic Party wants nothing to do with him. They are starting to distance themselves from him and his campaign. Nancy Pelosi, funny enough, had a pretty tight relationship with Swalwell and was asked, how she feels about this whole thing, given that she kind of endorsed him already and has been backing his campaign. And, she's kind of giving that whole, well, if the allegations are true, it's egregious, but an investigation needs to take place. However, she did state that something along the lines of, I don't think that going through the governor's race right now is a good idea. So that is an interesting standpoint from Miss Nancy Pelosi. I thought that was a fairly whack statement, but, telling she wants him to drop out as well. So if this does sound familiar to you, if you are a millennial and you remember that in the 1990s, we had a presidential candidate, a Democratic one at that, who was accused of sleeping with a staffer, sleeping with an intern specifically. Her name was Monica Lewinsky. And his response to the allegations sound oddly familiar with Swalwell. Swalwell again claims this never happened. They're absolutely false. What did Bill Clinton claim about Miss Monica Lewinsky? This never happened. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Turns out the man was a full-blown liar and eventually ended up getting impeached, acquitted of those impeachment charges. But he was already on his second term. He wasn't going to get elected again. But it was the first viral online moment because the internet had just really taken off in the very, very late 90s. This was 1998, I believe, 99, somewhere around there. And funny enough, an election was also happening. Al Gore, Bill Clinton's vice president at the time, was running in the 2000 election. And it was fairly interesting that a very similar narrative to what Swalwell is saying around election, that, allegedly this was a Republican smear campaign to try and sway the election away from the Democrats. There is still a lot of controversy and conspiracy theories when it comes to that. However, it does not absolve men men in politics specifically, just because there's an election happening. It does not absolve you from facing the consequences of your actions. If anything, it's a good thing that it's happening before the primary and not the actual general election in November. The primary is happening in a couple weeks here. I'm recording this in April. And so because this is happening in the primaries, I would say it's not even close to being true that this is a Republican smear campaign. I think that these women were fed up from seeing you try to run for governor, a very, very important seat that people need to 100% trust in the person that they are voting for, because we are being released from the chains of Gavin Newsom and we desperately need somebody that we can actually trust. Gavin Newsom has been so detrimental to so many progressive policy advancements in the state. We need a true progressive. Swalwell is absolutely not it. If anything, Swalwell is a centrist. Like, the man can kick rocks. So that is the full, on story. Obviously, the Democrats are potentially going to want to investigate this, as they should, but he should absolutely drop out. This is not a race that he, should have entered in the first place. And I would love to know what you guys think in terms of men in politics having this ego complex of, I can do whatever I want and I can treat people however I want. I would love to hear from you. Do you believe in this narrative of, well, as long as it was consensual, it was okay, especially as it relates to the man being in power and the women, being much younger, one, and also being their subordinates, right? Like being, there is a hierarchy within staffer culture. So I would love to hear your personal thoughts on this whole situation. Personally, for me, the cancellation couldn't come fast enough. We don't need more centrists in office. We don't need more white men in politics having power complexes. I'm sick of it and I'm done with it, and we need to move on. So that's the Eric Swalwell case. If you haven't subscribed to my channels on Substack and YouTube, please do. Find me on Instagram. That's where I'm posting very quick clips of my personal opinions and thoughts on everything that's been happening. I'm having a lot of really good conversations there in the comments with you guys, so make sure to follow me there. And I will see you very, very soon.